Hello and welcome to Week 1's lecture for Chapters 1 and 2 for LET 215. Again, my name is Todd Hurley. I'm your instructor for LET 215, and so the video lecture that you have here is hopefully an enhancement to what you're reading in the book and what you're seeing in the PowerPoint presentations. This week we plan to go over Chapter 1's PowerPoint presentation, and then there is no PowerPoint material on Chapter 2, but I'll briefly go over some of the top high points of that chapter. We'll talk about some of the information that's in there, information that you're going to need to know for quizzes and tests, just to make sure that you're aware of that. So let's go ahead and get started with the PowerPoint presentation for Chapter 1, the introduction. The first part of this chapter is mainly generic information about the course, some disclaimers, some copyright information. So let's go ahead and get started. First slide here. So Chapter 1's Police Technology. It's again based on the book by Raymond Foster. The book itself is a little bit dated, so that's why I wanted to start adding these video lectures so that we can add some more current information. Give you some updated information on some of the topics that are dated in the book. So here's the typical copyright stuff. It's information in there that I have in there for all my classes and all the different material I put out, but it's generic. We won't spend too much time doing that. If you want to come back and you can look at that, classroom privacy statements, as well as that continued. Course delivery. Again, we know the course here is delivered via Blackboard. You should be very familiar with Blackboard by now, I would think. If not, go back and look at the introduction video that I put out there that covers at least Blackboard from the perspective of LET 2150. PowerPoints, these YouTube videos, those will be the main, and then the Blackboard material, the tests and quizzes that are taken on Blackboard. They're non-proctored tests and quizzes, so as we get into that, you'll see a YouTube video that talks about how to take tests, how to take quizzes. Again, all tests and quizzes are open book and open notes. So again, when you read through the material, it's not hypercritical that I know exactly, but the point of reading the material is so that when you're taking a quiz or test, you know exactly where to go back and reference that material. Course delivery, again, reading assignments, PowerPoint lectures, discussion boards, assignments. The assignments, I try to make it very simple that each week there's an assignment folder. If you go in and take care of the information that's in that assignment folder for the week, it's dated there, you'll be fine, and you'll keep right up with class. So I know there's some of the students, when they first take the class, are a little concerned it may be their first fully online class, and so they're concerned. So that's why I've tried to organize it in a fashion that if you're going down, hitting each week's assignment folder and taking care of the information in there, you'll be just fine. Digital Dropbox is not necessarily used in this class, so I'll skip that one. The instructor objectives. Again, my role is to conduct the course or put the course together so it's consistent with the academic standards that the university has. Two, it is a text-based information, based on the book by Raymond Foster, so that we know. We're following a curriculum or a book-based curriculum, so that you can follow along in the book, and that's really the key. The key is to make sure that you're exposed to the information, that you understand a little bit more about that, and I will try to bring in the perspective of a real life, police department, law enforcement perspective to some of these things. So you're like, trying to put the material you're learning and apply it to real application. Here's the course requirements again. Here's how the makeup of the course. Discussion board and written assignments. This class, the 25% will be all discussion boards. There'll be 4 quizzes that make up 25% of your grade. Your midterm will be 25% of your grade, and your final will be 25% of your grade. Pretty straightforward. Grading scale, it's a typical university grading scale. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact me, but that should be pretty straightforward. Again, the book is a textbook, Police Technology by Raymond E. Foster. I mentioned in the introduction video about best sources to get that. Chegg.com, again, to me they're quick and they tend to be cheap. I think $41.29 or $41.49 is the cost to rent the book for the duration of the course. Assignments. Assignments are posted under the assignments folder. Again, I just talked about that just briefly, so make sure you follow with that. The symbols that you'll see in here, there's two, though. The opposing faces are ones that when you're going through the PowerPoint slides, those will call out the discussion boards. Again, we don't really have any written assignments in this class, so you shouldn't see any of the pen scribbling there, or whatever that icon is. I'm not sure I figured that one out yet, but so online study, one of the, this is clearly a class that's done completely online. So there are some guidelines here, some things that if you want to take the time to look at to determine if your online readiness, and some of the things that talk about, what characteristics, you have to be successful as an online student, how much time you should be spending on your study of your class. Is your computer compatible for online courses? These are some good information, tutorials on some of the Office information. You can learn about Blackboard, files and folders, and how to download for the internet. I hope by now that you have a good grasp on those things. That will make the class go much easier. Then we talk about learning styles. Some of the learning styles, everybody has different learning styles. Me, I'm a hands-on kind of person. As much information as I can get my hands on, the better off or the better prepared I am. Repetition is good as well, for some of the things that I do. So, you can look at the surveys and the type of on-learning style, and you can talk about that. And that leads into the first discussion board for week 1. This is or I guess this particular slide talks about the two different discussion boards that we'll have in this chapter 1. The first one is this one here. It is the introduction. So you're just basically introducing yourself to the class. Talk about the style of learner that you are. Just give you some information. If you're military, what your plans are, what the purpose of going to school. And if you want to upload a picture of yourself, if you don't have to. Just this is your introduction to the other students taking the class, because you'll find that you're going to have interaction with these other students via the discussion board. So it's kind of important to let them know who you are. Learning outcomes. So the learning outcomes for this particular chapter are tactical, the difference between tactical and strategic information, what technology is meant in conjunction, why technology and law enforcement should be explored. And so we'll talk about the different perspectives. Efficiency versus effectiveness. That's the one that tends to confuse a lot of people. Community policing, situational crime prevention, and the last one, fragmentation. And fragmentation has two different viewpoints to that, and we'll talk about the one that we're most concerned with via technology. So the first part of this, you have to ask yourself, how does a line employee, whether that's sworn or non-sworn, view his technology? So you have to understand that there, in a typical police agency, there is the line officers or the patrol officers. Then you have supervisors, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, chiefs, various ranks. So you have to look at how those people come into play. Now you'll see that the line employee or the patrol officers, civilian employees, supervisors, and police managers. So that all of those fit into the category of end users from a technology standpoint. Some supervisors also fall into the category of oversight, and that oversight also extends to police managers. And then typically the decision maker is going to be the chief or whoever's at the top of the organization for the law enforcement agency. So you have to understand that there's going to be different perspectives about technology based on who you are and your position in the organization. We view technology against the backdrop of a couple different things, 4 key things: efficiency and effectiveness, and we'll go through that, community policing, and how technology can be an enhancer to community policing, situational crime prevention, and fragmentation. Technology is sometimes the cause, but sometimes the solution in curing some of the fragmentation issues that we have in law enforcement. What is technology? Technology is, in the 21st century, is not defined by what it is or what it does, but more in the context of the use and how technology is used. So when we look at information technology, most police work done by the employees of the employees of the police department are centered around information. So when they interview a witness, they're gathering information. They're in interrogations, they're gathering information, and they're also cultivating information from informants and any other sources that they can glean information from. So here's the first graded discussion board for Chapter 1. It's our police department's becoming too dependent upon technology to the detriment of critical thinking. The point of this is to get your opinion, and it's important that when you do discussion boards that you put your opinion. Don't just say I think the sky is blue, but state the sky is blue because this, and this, and put some supporting facts to it. So most of the discussion boards that we'll have this semester, there is no right or wrong answer to those. What I'm looking for is for your opinion and supporting your opinion. There are a couple discussion boards that there is a more clear-cut correct answer, but again, if you want to argue an opposing viewpoint, argue the opposing viewpoint, but back your argument up with fact and some of your, some information that supports your point of view. Also, when you are responding to other people's posts, what I don't want to see is, yes, I agree, you're right, I agree with you. Make sure if you do, make sure that you include. Make sure you include points of why you agree with them, or information that further supports your agreement of their position. Next part to this is education about law enforcement can, and then there's some points here. 1, to improve the chances of successful use and implementation. If you're more educated about the technology, it will increase the chances of that technology being useful and helpful to the end user. Enhance the prosecution of offenders. That should be a clear. If you have better technology, you have more information, you're going to have a better chance of prosecuting the offenders that you're pursuing. Allow supervisors and managers to lead, train, and supervise. So it's pretty straightforward there. Increase the success and satisfaction with technology as end users and decision makers increase. So again, those are 4 major points here. Reliance on information from official sources results in, so if we rely too much on just the information from official sources, sometimes that will reduce the public it does reduce the public contact and may have reduced public confidence. Okay, next section here, we're going to talk about tactical versus strategic information. The first section here is tactical information. So any device or anything that's used in the field to make decision is tactical based technologies, or devices that you might use to gather information on a scene. Decisions that police officers make in the field at the time of an event, those required to be immediate can be thought of as tactical decisions. So, do I shoot this guy? Do I tase this guy? Those kinds of decisions, or that kind of information you're gleaning based on the behavior of a suspect or someone that you have pulled over, are informations that you're factoring in, or tactical information that you're factoring in on how to respond and how to react in that situation. Strategic information can be thought of as information used for planning, such as crime analysis. Information is used strategically by police officers and detectives and police managers in different ways. So this next slide will talk about how detectives, police officers versus via statements, evidence, their observations, is organized in a way in order to help them determine, what happened and who did it. Police managers use strategic information in ways to help determine manpower loading. Do we have enough coverage here? Do we want to maybe modify our police districts and add a district? Those kinds of strategic type of decisions that are made by upper level police managers. Next section here is efficiency versus effectiveness. This one is confusing, and to this day I have to keep a good close focus for myself to help to understand efficiency versus effectiveness. Efficiency is defined as doing something cheaper or the ability to complete an activity using fewer inputs. So the quicker, the fewer steps that you have to do to do something is more efficient. So typically information technology is evaluated by comparing cost and benefits. So, the point from a technology standpoint, if we can't make the process that you're using to do something more efficient, then that's where we weigh the cost versus the benefit. Effectiveness, the real goal of effectiveness is to attain some goal. Therefore, organizations can be effective but not efficient, and vice versa. So you can be very efficient, do things in fewer steps, but if it's not moving you towards attaining a goal, then it's not effective. So again, efficiency is doing something with fewer steps. Effectiveness is moving toward a goal. So the two things in the red banner here: does technology impact efficiency? Does technology impact effectiveness? Clearly they do, and sometimes you have to weigh the difference between, is the technology worth it? Does it make us more efficient and more effective? And sometimes the answer is no. Last slide on effectiveness and efficiency. Estimating benefits is much larger in law enforcement because benefits are intangible and difficult to quantify. Sorry, there's one more slide here. This is where we talk about efficiency and effectiveness. Some of the reasons why it's intangible or more hard to quantify is sometimes crime goes unreported. Victims don't report the crimes from motor vehicles. Maybe they're not aware that something was stolen from their vehicle. The stigma of being the victim, and sometimes they just don't know that things were stolen. The next section here, we talk about community policing. Community policing, although there are a number of different definitions, there are typically 4 categories or themes that are common to most definitions of community policing. One is a partnership with the community. 2 is decisions are decentralized, so it's not all decisions aren't made at the upper level. There are some decision-making power that's pushed out through the ranks. Organizational-wide implementation. So if we're doing it in patrol, we're doing it in a detective bureau, we're doing it in our strategic response bureau. So it's handled organizationally wide, and the whole key is problem solving. It's community policing is hopefully to solve problems. That's the whole point. One of the first points, partnership with the community. The police can't solve all problems of the community. So one of the ways that we kind of reinforce that here in Grove City is our police officers will ride through the neighborhoods at nights. If they see garage doors are open, they'll go up and knock on doors. So it's a partnership. It's not sure, is that going to lead directly to a crime? Maybe not, but having a garage door open in the middle of the night, it's only an opportunity for somebody to commit a crime. Police officers and other personnel should be assigned to specific geographic boundaries. Grove City is split up into 4 police districts. Officers will serve a period of time in that one district so that the community in that district gets to know who that police officer is. So it's important that they see a common face every day driving through their neighborhood, and that there's maybe some interaction. Organizational-wide implementation. Patrol officers, detectives, supervisors, and members of specialized units and police managers must be committed to community policing. So again, this should be pretty straightforward. The whole organization, the whole police department, the whole agency has to be committed towards community policing. Problem solving. The third point on that, when we talk about problem solving in the science world, we use the scientific method. You observe, hypothesize, experiment, conclude, come to you can draw some conclusions. From the law enforcement perspective, the approach is called SARA. So scan, analyze, respond, and assess. So it's the same process, same type of problem-solving model that is applied directly or derived directly from the law enforcement. So it's important that you understand this one. You'll see this information on SARA. You'll need to know scan, analyze, respond, and assess for tests and quizzes. It is important for most, or is ultimately more efficient and effective to fix a problem than the alternative of repeatedly responding to a symptom or problems cause. So, one of the things that clearly, if we can get to the root cause of why we're responding to all these types of calls, we can be more effective. And obviously the effectiveness is just to prevent the crime. And maybe we do a few steps up front. We do some crime prevention education, whatever it might be, and that's how we become more efficient. So taking a couple steps up front to prevent the crime is more efficient and effective than responding to the crime. Problem-solving efforts are very likely to create new partnerships and bonds between community, police, and other services. So if we're out there doing these kinds of programs, crime prevention, those kinds of things, that you tend to develop better relationships with the community, and it's a major point with community policing. Problem solving. Crime prevention targets the root of the cause of the crime and disorder in two ways: education and problem solving. One of the problems that we have in Grove City is we have a large retail area near I-71. We have quite a few large stores. We tend to have a lot of theft from vehicles. So we've worked with the retailers to help enhance some of the security efforts or security measures they have and thing. We help to try to educate our consumers that are shopping in those areas, things to do, things not to leave in your car, things that you don't want to do to make yourself a victim. And then we increase our patrols in those areas to target some of that. So that's some of the means and ways that we educate the end users, the retailers, and then the problem solving part of that is how we go out and target that particular area. So situational crime prevention, that's exactly what I just mentioned there. There are three parts to situational crime prevention: targeting specific form of crime, in that case theft from motor vehicles; changing the environment, so we either enhance security in those areas from the retailers, educate our consumers, and then increasing the offender risk. By increasing our patrols through those areas, we do that. So, oops, went the wrong way there. Here's a definition of community policing based on published by the Department of Justice. Technology is viewed as an enhancer of community policing. So I mentioned that earlier in the presentation. So it's important that you know that hopefully technology is an enhancer and not a deterrent to community policing. One of the last segments here that we're going to talk about is fragmentation. And there's multiple different viewpoints in fragmentation. So here's a good example. Many adjoining and overlapping law enforcement jurisdictions cannot communicate on the radio and readily exchange data. What you see in the picture here is it looks like they're responding to a large event, and so you have law enforcement and fire department there. How they communicate is typically a challenge, and that's the fragmentation. You have people in different disparaging systems. Criminal justice intentionally fragmented. Is intentionally fragmented in order to maintain checks and balances essential to our democracy. That is the initial, I guess, the initiated side of fragmentation. So it's important to understand that was the point, and that's how fragmentation occurs, is because there are multiple jurisdictions. There's checks and balances, but from that, we end up with a lot the main issue. So you see fragmentation on this slide here, and interoperability. Those are words that will go hand in hand. If you cannot interop, or you cannot communicate readily, whether it's information or radio traffic, whatever it might be, that give you with adjoining jurisdictions. That's where you have your interoperability. So I can't communicate. if I'm a small city police department and I can't communicate with our county sheriffs directly, that's an example of interoperability. So interoperability, or the ability for different agencies to communicate via technology, is often caused by fragmentation. So fragmentations. This is, I think we're getting towards the end of the presentation here, and a thought on this. Some people believe that criminal justice is fragmented because of institutional paranoia. Agencies don't want other agencies to know what they know, and thereby in a position to challenge their decisions. So that's a question, that you maybe sit back and think: is that, are we fragmented, and do we continue to be fragmented in the information as a result of that? And that's the lecture for chapter 1. Chapter 2, there's some information that we want to cover. So I'm just going to go through some things that are in there. There isn't a PowerPoint slide for this particular chapter, but really it's talking about personal computers and some of the information that's in there. They have a section about desktop computers. Hardware versus software, it should be pretty straightforward that the things that you can physically put your hands on, that's the hardware part of it. The software that's running on those computers, the programs that are running on those computers, that's the software portion of that. It's important to understand what peripheral devices are: printers, speakers, keyboards, microphones, cameras. The speakers, the camera, and the microphone that I'm using to do this PowerPoint presentation are peripheral devices to my computer. Inside the computer, there, the main components. You have the motherboard. It's the main board of the computer. It has sockets on it, expansion slots for RAM, and we'll talk about the sockets are typically where processors are put, whether it be a video processor or the CPU. The central processing unit is one, you should know what CPU stands for. Central processing unit, it is the chip that is running everything, all the instructions that are taking place on your computer. You also have RAM in your computer, random access memory. RAM is used to load programs into so that they run faster when you're using a particular program. They'll typically be loaded off the hard drive, which can be a hard drive, which is a physical optical drive that spins, or today's technology is solid state drives, SSDs. You have floppy drives that are pretty much obsolete. I'm not sure anybody that I know that uses those. CD-ROMs, DVDs, thumb drives, memory sticks, those kinds of things. Those are all going to fall in that category of drive space, or where long-term data is stored. Also on your computer, you will have ROM chips, read-only memory chips. Your BIOS, that is the instructions or the programs of how your motherboard is to operate. It's put on a chip. It's a read-only. It can't be affected easily. So that's another type of thing. When we get to software, we'll talk about OS. It's the operating system. It's the platform upon which all your applications will run. Their applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Internet Explorer. Those are all applications that run on the operating system. They use the operating system in order to run their particular applications. So those are some of the things that are in chapter 2. When you take a look at those, just highlight those in the book or make notes of that. Make sure you know where they're at, so that when you see them on a test or quiz, you can go back and reference that information. Real world application is you're not really, there are certain concepts that you need to grasp and understand and be able to pull off your head. But most of the material, if you have a reference to where that is, then that's the way that you'll operate. I'm sure that you won't be expected to know every code that's in the Ohio Revised Code or whatever local code that you're working with. You'll have a reference manual that you can go back, so you need to know where that's at. So the point of reading these chapters is to make sure you know where that information resides. So I hope that this video presentation is helpful. I plan to do one each week, so I will get one up for week 2 here in the next couple days. This one should suffice for the first week of class. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, in the information section under instructor information are all the ways to contact me. So feel free to contact me at any time if you struggle with any of the concepts or any of the information that's been put on or been presented here this morning. So hope you guys have a good day, have a good week, and let me know.